Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition meeting. It's October somehow, and we always meet on the first Thursday of October, and so today is the 1st of October as well, as you know. So welcome. We're going to give it a couple more minutes for others to join us. Good to see your faces popping up here. And I did just start recording the meeting. We have a number of people who said that they would like to be a part of the meeting or at least watch the meeting, but they are not able to join today, so they're looking forward to viewing it later. So I have started recording. And as you may have seen in the chat box, we have a place for you to introduce yourself. We will be going through and doing introductions as well in a few moments, but if you could type in your name, you probably don't really need to type in your name since it's already there, but at least your pronouns, an organization that you may be a part of, and anything else that you think would be nice for us to know about you. So get familiar with where that chat box is, and also you have the option to view everyone, which is really great. When we have our cameras on during introductions, you can also just view those who have their cameras on, or not see anyone's camera. So you can hopefully see where that option is, as well as where your camera button is and your microphone button. So take a moment to get familiar with all of that. And we'll wait a couple more minutes for others to join. Awesome, Brooke. Thank you for adding where you are joining from. It is really nice to see what town or city people are calling in from. So thanks for adding that. I'm in Freeport. See, you're in Harpswell. Awesome. Okay. So Amanda, I saw that you are here. I'm going to let you take it from here, and I'll share my screen for the moment, but then I'll be turning it off in just once we're done with that part.
Hey, hi. I don't know who else is just like quickly coming from another meeting, but trying to shift roles. So welcome to the Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition meeting agenda. I'm going to pull it up on my screen so it's easier to see. So I'm just going to go over the agenda real quick. We're going to do a board of directors update, presentation on inclusive language and breastfeeding support, then our connecting the dots part. That's a really great discussion section, and then wrapping up. Would anybody like to be the timekeeper for us? It's very easy to get off track if anybody wants to raise their hand or put in the chat. Anybody? Kara, do you want me to name someone?
I'll do it, Amanda.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay.
Okay, and then Kara, did you say, are we going to go around and do the instructions, or were you doing them in the chat?
I was thinking it would be nice, but I don't think we'll have time. It looks like we have a great group here. So I think if we can all just be sure to type in our pronouns, organization, town, anything else that would be good for everyone to know, that would be great. So we can all read through that in the chat box without getting too distracted, hopefully.
This is Donna here, the secretary. Could you tell me again who's the timekeeper? I didn't catch that.
I am Sarah Gabriel.
Oh, thanks, Sarah.
Yep.
And thank you, Donna, for taking the minutes, as always.
Happy to.
All right.
Kara, do you want to move on to the...
Sure. Yeah. And I was mentioning earlier, for those of you who have joined since 101, when I was talking about how this meeting is being recorded, for those of the interested folks who are interested in being a part of the meeting and watching, they would like to watch the recording after. And also just for you all to get a chance to get familiar with the controls here, know where your mute button is, where your camera button is, and the chat box, as we were talking about. And you also have different view options. You can view the active cameras, you can view everyone who's part of the meeting, or not have anyone viewed. So it's really nice to have cameras on. If you're comfortable with that, that's awesome. It really feels like we're all here together. So thank you for being willing to do that if you are. If not, totally understood. And yes, the board of directors update. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here if I can figure out how to do that. And then we can have a little more room to see everyone too. So not a ton to update on the board side, other than the fact that we had a pretty fabulous World Breastfeeding Week early in August. I would say it was a virtual success. We offered a webinar each day on topics like milk supply and donor breast milk, breast pumps, cultural beliefs in breastfeeding, and we wrapped up the week with a celebration of parents during this pandemic. And we had over 100 attendees throughout the week, which was really exciting. And we raised funds toward our mission. Sarah, can you pop in just for a second and just share a little bit about that? We don't need to go into too many details, but we did have sponsorship, really awesome sponsorship for that whole week. And that helped to raise money toward our funds, like I said. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd be happy, Kara. Right now, the balance in the account after I did transfer PayPal over, is about $6,000, and that's accounting for some deposits in PayPal that we had left there for a while. But basically, World Breastfeeding Week did help us a lot. We had a lot of great sponsors for the different events each day, so that's wonderful. And then we also had a flatbread night that was sweetly offered to us during World Breastfeeding Week. So that was wonderful. They're great supporters. So now we get to do great work with that money. So we're very excited. Excellent.
And many of you I know were part of those webinars, and we did email out a survey link to give some feedback. And I'm going to put that in the chat box as well. You should be able to, if you can't click on it directly, you can copy and paste that into your browser and give us some feedback on the week. So we'd love to do something similar again in the future. So your feedback's really helpful. And otherwise, we continue to plug away at our strategic plan, all while balancing life during these crazy times. So we're continuing to work on that, and we will also be planning our meetings and events for 2021. And as always, we want to know what your feedback is and what your suggestions are for meeting topics or different events throughout the year. So if you can also take a moment to type in the chat box any ideas that you have, any suggestions you have, then please type those into the chat box, or as always, you can email us at mainbreastfeeds@gmail.com. I will enter that in too, in case you don't have access to that. And that is it for a board update at this point, unless there's anyone else who's here and part of the board that would like to add something, anything that I may have forgotten. Okay. I'm really looking forward to the connecting the dots portion of the meeting today as well, so we can all hear from each other on what's going on in your world, and also feel free to share any ideas or suggestions you have during that part of the meeting too. So for now, it is time, I believe, to turn it over to Sarah Nealon Campbell. Sarah, excuse me, is a member of both the LGBTQIA and disabled communities. Excuse me. The equity, diversity, and inclusion, as equity, diversity, and inclusion are a passion of Sarah's. She currently serves on the Lactation League Maine, New Hampshire EDI Committee, as well as the Lactation League USA EDI Committee, and EDI stands for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. She has nursed 5 babies, and in her spare time, she runs a sewing business, reads, spends time outside, and is an artist. I'm really excited to have Sarah here. I've been wanting to have Sarah present to the coalition for probably 2 years now. I think it was 2 years ago, the Lactation League Maine, New Hampshire conference that I was at. I think that may have also been when I met Donna Ellis, who's our secretary. And I heard Sarah speak on this topic, and I thought it was really informative and something that a lot of us would like to hear more about. So thank you, Sarah, for being here. Feel free to introduce yourself further as well, but I'm going to leave it to you from here until 1:45, at which point you have to leave exactly at 1:45. So however much time you need, and then hopefully allow a few minutes for questions. We will also be able to collect those questions and ask them toward the end too. If you want to send any in the general chat box, or any you can send privately to me, and I can be sure to ask for you, or we can unmute you when the time comes. All right. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. Hi, everyone. So I'm Sarah, as Kara said. My pronouns are they, them. Kara pretty much said everything. I do a lot of EDI work with La Leche League. It really is a passion of mine, being a part of a couple of marginalized communities. It is really important to me. I am transgender queer, and I will kind of explain those terms a little bit in a minute. Since I do have to go right at the time, I know Kara has my email, so you're always welcome to get that from her, or email her questions and she can forward them. I can also, at the end of my time speaking, I can turn my camera and audio off and just type in the chat some of the resources that I give you, so you don't have to worry about writing them down when I'm talking about them. So inclusivity in breastfeeding, it really encompasses a lot more than what I can really talk about in a half an hour. So this is just kind of like a little primer. There's race, there's disability, there's age, class, LGBTQ issues. So today I'm only going to really be focusing on trans and non-binary issues, and how those relate to breastfeeding support, and how to be more inclusive with that community. So I wanted to just do a few basic terms that most people might know, some people might not. So I just like to define them at the beginning, so we're kind of all on the same page. So sex is your biological sex. It's what's used to assign your gender at birth. So whether you have a vulva or
I think Sarah's audio Sarah may have frozen. And she had mentioned her internet. They had mentioned their internet capabilities are a little wonky sometimes. So Sarah, I'm not sure if you can hear us right now or not. Also, I'm just going to own that I have learned. I have a lot to learn still, and I apologize in your intro using the wrong pronouns when I was introducing you. So thank you for someone had pointed that out to me, and my bad. This is what we have to learn. So Sarah, we had lost you a bit. You froze up. I wish I could remember what you had said last, but I
The last word I think was vulva. So
Okay.
That was accurate.
So yeah. So sorry, my internet is spotty here. So vulva or penis, sex at birth, that's how we assign our gender at birth, is what sex characteristics we see on the outside. Sex is really evolving, the term, as it refers to our biology. There's some talk of even removing the term biological from that, because there's just so many variations in our sex characteristics and in our genes, that it's something that's really evolving. And it's just something to keep an eye on as time goes on here, to keep an eye on the research and how that's changing. So your gender identity is your inner awareness about your femininity or masculinity. Most of the time, for most people, it does align with your assigned gender at birth, but then there are those of us where it does not align with the gender that we were assigned at birth. Your gender expression is how you present yourself, and that may match your gender identity or it may not match your gender identity. You have women who dress more, masculine, or men who dress more feminine. It doesn't have to match how you feel on the inside. So an intersex person is someone who's born with any variety of sex characteristics. They could have testicles and a vulva, or they could have, there are actually cases of intersex people who have both sets of genitalia, or their chromosomes they might look like a woman or a man on the outside, but they have any mix of genes. And then you have binary genders. So that's male and female. Those are the two genders that we most often think of. And then cisgender is someone who identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth. So most people, we would say, are cisgender. A transgender individual is someone who doesn't identify with their assigned gender at birth. And transgender, when we talk about transgender individuals, we usually think about binary transgender, so those who are male to female or female to male. But transgender is actually an umbrella term that encompasses anyone who doesn't identify with their assigned gender at birth. The important thing to remember about that is not all non-binary individuals will identify as trans, so it's just something to be aware of. And non-binary is an umbrella term for someone who falls outside of the gender binary. And that can include genderqueer people, gender fluid people, gender flux people. The amount of genders there are is really endless. If you go online and look, it can actually be kind of overwhelming. So those are just the basic terms that I like to kind of get out of the way in the beginning of the presentation, so that we all kind of know what we're talking about when I'm talking. I am on my phone, so I have to kind of switch back and forth between chat and video. So if there's a question in the chat that I'm not seeing, someone just let me know. So the biggest thing.
Sarah, I have a question about the definition of genderqueer. Can you explain?
So genderqueer is someone who's non-binary, it's kind of like, it used to be the umbrella term. It used to be the umbrella term for all non-binary people, but it became more of like a political stance. So it's a hard stance of saying, I don't believe in any of the, I'm not in the gender binary at all. And some people might use it interchangeably with non-binary. Like sometimes I'll just say I'm non-binary because it's easier than saying genderqueer and having to explain it. So it is kind of interchangeable with non-binary. Was there someone else that had a question? No. Did anyone else have any questions about any of those definitions before we move on? Okay. So the biggest way to be inclusive in breastfeeding support is recognizing someone's pronouns. We don't say their preferred pronouns anymore. We just say that they're pronouns. Everyone uses pronouns for themselves. The most common ones obviously are she, her, he, him. They, them is the other common one. And a lot of people get tripped up on it because in school, we're mainly taught about the plural form of they, them. But they, them has actually been used singularly for a really long time in the English language. Even Shakespeare used they singularly in his works. A lot of people use singular they without even realizing they're using it in their daily lives. Like, you know, I really like their shirt that they're wearing, or, you know, just something like that. I always say that if you have a hard time using they, them in the singular, when you're out, like, I know we don't go very many places right now because of the coronavirus, but when you're out, you can, like when you're out shopping, you can practice it in your head and be like, oh, I really like their shirt that they're wearing. I really like their hair. Oh, look at their shoes. Or, you know, if you are out with your kids and they say, oh, mom, I really like her hair, you can say, well, we would say their hair because we don't actually know what gender they are, if you're comfortable doing that. So it's a really easy thing to practice in daily life to yourself. The other pronouns that there are called neopronouns. So these are new pronouns that people have kind of made up as they go along because, you know, he, she, they don't feel right to these people. The most common ones are they, zir, and they, here, hears. But there are, I've heard all sorts of them. I've heard fey, fair. I've heard ear, air. They're used the same way that she, her, he, him, they, them would be used in a sentence. The only way to know someone's pronouns is if they tell you, obviously. And if you're confused about how to use a pronoun, you can always ask. We are always happy to tell you how you would use a pronoun if you don't know. Pronouns are really the most important thing because they're such a simple way to affirm someone's gender. And if you do use the wrong pronouns, you can apologize and just correct yourself the next time. For some people, it can take a long time to get used to using a more gender-neutral pronoun for someone who may present male or female. And that's okay, as long as you are correcting yourself when you do make a mistake. One of the ways to make, I don't know how many of you lead meetings or groups or anything like that, but one of the easiest ways to make trans and non-binary people feel welcome at meetings or whatever is with an inclusive intro. Say your pronouns when you're saying your name or, you know, meeting someone for the first time. They might not say what their pronouns are back to you, but it signals to a trans or non-binary person that you're aware that pronouns are a thing and that you know, you'll respect what their pronouns are if they decide to come out to you and tell you what they are. You can also put pronouns in your email signature. I have my pronouns in mine. It's right after my name. The next thing are my pronouns. That's another way to signal to the people that you work with that you are kind of, you know, you're more inclusive, you're a safe space for them. You can put it on your, like an inclusivity statement. If you have a website, you could put an inclusivity statement on there that you support all people in their human milk feeding journeys, regardless of gender, you know, orientation, race, etc. It's real, I mean, those little things are really the most important to signal someone that you're a safe space for them. An example that I have, it was actually one that I found online for a La Leche League meeting. It says, while this organization has traditionally identified as supporting breastfeeding mothers, we honor and recognize that not all humans who feed human milk identify as female. As such, we are learning and trying to use more inclusive language. So I mean, just that simple paragraph right there, that just recognizes that, yes, you know, breastfeeding is typically seen as something that a woman does. However, we recognize that that's not always the case, and we're working to do better for your community and be more inclusive. So if you lead groups, again, just make sure you're not forcing people to share their pronouns. Just say it in your intro and let them share if they want to, and if they don't want to, that's fine too. Another way to kind of help trans folks feel more welcome is to use terms interchangeably. So a lot of times when we're talking about breastfeeding, we often just use breastfeeding and mother. But there are so many other terms that we can use to be more inclusive to the trans and non-binary community. Some of the other terms you'll see for breastfeeding are chest feeding. That one's becoming a lot more common now. I see that a lot more often. The other term that's newer is body feeding, because some trans and non-binary folks just don't want to have any association with their chest area at all, even if they've had top surgery. Some people have an issue with body feeding because they feel that it can have like a sexual connotation to it, but it's your job as someone who's not trans or non-binary to work through that uncomfortableness and you know, kind of figure out where that's coming from and why. And if you're still uncomfortable with it and it's a term that your client uses, it's just something that you're going to have to deal with and sit with, unfortunately, because there are some people that use that term. And it's never okay to correct someone, obviously, what their preferred term is for breastfeeding. You can also, instead of just using mother, you can say parent or father. Some trans people have actually picked different parent names for themselves. So like I have a friend who their kids call them Nova instead of mom or dad. So just be listening for which they prefer, or if you know, they might just come out and tell you. But if they don't, just listen for which they prefer. You can, instead of saying breast milk, I like the term human milk. I see that a lot in the Leche League right now. A lot of our stuff has changed over to say human milk instead of breast milk. When you're talking to a group of non-binary or trans people, or just a group of people in general, instead of saying, you know, us moms or moms like us, you can say parents like us, or a popular one is folks. And when you're typing it out, a lot of people do FOLX instead of FOLKS. And like guys and dude, a lot of people now are recognizing that those aren't necessarily gender neutral terms, like how we use them. I mean, I use guys all the time, honestly, I'm guilty of it. But those are not gender neutral terms, so we should move away from them because they do make people uncomfortable. So just really be mindful of just those little terms in your daily practices. Make sure you're kind of using them interchangeably, both in your talk and, you know, if you have a website, again, see if you can change it up a little bit. You know, sometimes use breastfeeding, sometimes use chest feeding. Because if someone goes to your website and sees that, okay, yeah, they're using these terms, they're probably a safe space. They probably at least know a little bit about what I'm going through. I can go to them for help. I know a lot of trans and non-binary individuals are kind of scared to go for breastfeeding and chest feeding help, just because it's obviously been so gendered to be women and moms. So it is really important that you do those little things to show that you're safe for people. Does anyone have any questions up to this point?
So
No?
you're saying that it's okay to have a variety of those terms instead of switching everything to gender neutral, or is it preferred to switch to gender neutral?
It's really up to you, but even just having the term chest feeding on your website, or when you're talking to people every now and then, is a signal that, yeah, you're at least doing the work towards being inclusive to those people. You don't have to change it up completely. I personally, I like seeing human milk in place of breast milk. But again, that's your preference as a provider. If you'd like to just change everything, or if you just want to intersperse things. But as long as something is there that shows that you're a safe space, that's good enough for most people. Does anyone have any other questions? So, I mean, the same goes for I don't know if you have Facebook pages. I know we have Facebook pages for our La Leche League groups. Same thing with that. Posts that you share, see if you can find articles or whatever that are gender neutral. Things like that. If you share resources on your website, see if you can make a section that's, for trans and non-binary folks. Just, things like that. If you're an IBCLC with an office, you see if you could put up like an inclusivity statement on the wall, or if you have a badge, see if you could put your pronouns on that somehow. Or, even if it can't be on the badge directly, something that could hang down from the badge that has your pronouns, or another pin that has your pronouns underneath your badge. I know not everyone can do that because of where they work, but just something like that, it goes a long way in the trans and non-binary communities. The biggest thing to remember, and I mean this really goes for anyone, is that not all trans and non-binary people are the same. We're not a big conglomerate. We don't all like the same things or prefer the same things. There are many, many gender identities, as I said before. A lot more than what I've said. So you really are, if you really want to learn more, I will put in the chat after I talk. I have a couple minutes, so I'll be able to put resources that really list, not all of them, but it's a pretty comprehensive list of gender identities to get to know. So that way you just know a little bit more if someone comes to you and says, well, I'm a demi boy. And you're, that way you might be able to be like, okay, I kind of know what that is. So I can, be a little bit more tuned into what they might need. There are also trans and non-binary people who are completely fine with using the terms breastfeeding and mom. Like, I'm mom still, and I use the term breastfeeding for myself. So that's important to remember too, is that not everyone will, not everyone needs the gender neutral terms. I lost my train of thought, sorry. Sorry. So you have to remember too that the nursing dynamic in trans and non-binary relationships is really varied. You might have the trans dad might be nursing, but if the mom might be the one who carried the baby. You might even have a trans woman who's nursing and supplementing. So it's just so varied in the LGBTQ community as a whole as to what those nursing relationships look like. So that is really important to keep in mind. There is research out there in terms of trans men and trans women nursing. There have actually been documented cases of trans women nursing. So that would be someone who was assigned male at birth is now female and is able to lactate through the use of hormones and prescriptions and whatnot. a lot of the times with those individuals, they use an SNS or they supplement just because they don't necessarily have the glandular tissue to produce enough milk for their baby. But for a lot of trans women who have kids, it's actually really important that they breastfeed somehow. And I know that a lot of trans women feel like they missed out when their kids were young if they didn't come out until they were older, because they wanted to really be able to bond with their babies in that way, and they just couldn't because they still identified as male. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Any questions before I get into a few issues that you might see? No. So the biggest question that often comes up is trans men who are on testosterone. It's generally not recommended to be on testosterone while you're chest feeding because it can and often does reduce supply. However, there are trans men who take testosterone while they're chest feeding, and oftentimes will use an SNS or some other supplemental, whether that's pumped milk, donor milk, or formula to chest feed. There have definitely been documented cases of trans men chest feeding while they're on testosterone. So it's not unheard of. It's just generally not recommended by doctors because it can reduce supply. But there are trans men who take it and don't have any effect on supply, and there's no negative effects to the baby typically. But as always, it's something that's best discussed with their doctor, hopefully a doctor who is open to a trans man chest feeding. Obviously not all of them are. Induced lactation in trans women. So induced lactation obviously is not unique to trans women, but there are special things to consider, like the amount of glandular tissue they have and if they need to create glandular tissue. There haven't been as many documented cases of trans women inducing lactation to nurse, but there have been some. So there is a little bit of research out there in terms of trans women inducing lactation. Gender dysphoria is a big thing. So gender dysphoria is when someone really there's an incongruence there between how they're feeling and how their body looks. Many trans men, for whatever reason, don't have top surgery. It's often expensive. It's hard to get the letters you need to get top surgery. So a lot of trans men bind to try to flatten their chest tissue. And if they can't bind enough, it can cause a lot of mental health issues because their body isn't looking how they feel on the inside. They also may not have had top surgery because chest feeding is important to them and they would like to chest feed. You can't bind when you're chest feeding. It's definitely not recommended. So that can cause a lot more dysphoria because they're not only not able to bind to flatten their chest tissue, but now they're also, chest feeding. So their breasts are out all the time. And it's just a constant reminder that they're not looking how they're feeling. You can get sports bras. Those can have, it's not quite the same as binding, but they tend to provide more support than just a regular bra. You can also, the clothing that they wear, they can kind of hide with like bigger shirts, bigger hoodies. If the dysphoria is really bad, you can suggest donor milk as an alternative. And if the person decides that chest feeding is just causing too much dysphoria, it's really important that you help them to stop milk supply as quickly as you possibly can. Gender dysphoria causes a lot of pain, and it's the cause of suicide in a lot of trans and non-binary individuals. So it's really important, if they're saying that they are feeling too dysphoric to continue with chest feeding, to just say, okay, well, here are some resources for you to stop your milk supply quickly. Don't try to encourage them to go back unless it sounds like it's something that they really want to work through. You kind of have to have that balance there. My time's almost up. So top surgery is another thing. Some trans men who have had top surgery still want to chest feed afterwards. Obviously, this should be supported by a doctor who can help with any hormones or medications that might be needed to do that. But oftentimes, trans men who have had top surgery need to supplement just because the glandular tissue has been taken away. So a few terms not to use when you're talking to trans and non-binary individuals would be tranny, transgendered, because transgender is a noun, is an adjective, not a noun. Transvestite is an older term that you will still hear some people use, but it's considered offensive and not okay to say. Hermaphrodite is also an older one that used to be used for intersex people, but it's a term that really only applies to animals, not to humans. I said earlier, try to avoid using blanket phrases like moms like us or guys. Don't make assumptions about the person's partner and relationship status as well as their gender identity. If you have someone come in a dress, they may identify as a trans man. You don't know until they tell you. So try not to assume. Don't refer to someone as being biologically male or female. The preferred terminology is assigned gender at birth. So assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth. Although the community is kind of getting away from that because it kind of separates, particularly in the non-binary community, it ends up really dividing us when really non-binary people are the same gender. So our assigned gender at birth doesn't really matter. Don't ask someone for a previous name or dead name them. So if you know someone by a name and then they decide to change their name, don't use what's called their dead name or their old name. If you do, just apologize and correct yourself. And transsexual is a term that some trans people still use. You'll usually see it in the older trans community. But it's better to play it safe and just not use it at all unless someone tells you that that's what they prefer. So how to be a good ally? Educate yourself. That's the biggest thing. Educate yourself on the LGBTQ community and the unique barriers they face, both in life and in parenting. When you make a mistake, correct yourself. Step up and act when necessary. If you're in a meeting, leading a meeting or a group, and one of the other members says something derogatory to the trans and non-binary individual, step up. It's your job as the leader to say that that's not okay. And the biggest thing is listen and support based on their needs and where they're at right now. That's the biggest thing. Just listen and support how they need the support. It's really, other than their unique needs and the pronouns, just treat them as you would any other client who's coming to you for help with breastfeeding or chest feeding. So this was just a little primer, as I said, on trans inclusive language, but there's a lot more to inclusive language than just the LGBTQ community, and I could do a lot of presentations on all the different ones. So I have a little bit of time. If anyone has any questions, I can answer a couple. Anyone?
Question, Sarah. Oh, is someone else going? I remember hearing about a website where people could go and find a trans-friendly doctor, or I believe lactation consultants were on there. Can you tell us what that is? When I looked at it, this was a little while ago, there were not many people listed in Maine. Whether that's because they didn't know about it or it's not a very popular website, I'm not sure. But what resources do you have that we could look into?
I'd have to go, I know what website you're talking about, and I'd have to go back and find it because I don't have it right off the top of my head. Some good resources, and I'll type these out in the chat once I turn my camera off here. Trevor McDonald is a trans male La Leche League leader in Canada. He has done a lot of work in terms of trans and non-binary nursing. He actually has a couple of scholarly articles out about trans experience with lactation. He's a great source. Kelly Mom actually has a page dedicated to trans and non-binary support. A couple of websites that are just kind of general, like you can look up gender identities and figure out how to be a better ally. GLAAD, GLAAD.org, has a link to a really awesome PDF that's all about being an ally and how to support. It's not breastfeeding specific, obviously, but it's just a general how to be a good ally to LGBTQ individuals. Another website, genderqueerid.com, gives a really good rundown of different terms relating to gender identity. Then there's a few Facebook groups that are really good. One is Birthing and Breast or Chest Feeding Trans People and Allies. It's not really a space for allies to ask questions, but it's a really good space for allies to learn about the experiences of trans people, because it's kind of their space to get support for their journeys. And it's actually a group that Trevor McDonald started a few years ago. Another good general one is Sounds Like You Need to Be Educated on Transgender Individuals, but okay. I'll type these all out in the chat. It's a really good general one, and it's just a huge group of transgender and non-binary individuals who are there to give education to anyone who needs it. Cis people ask questions, and trans and non-binary people answer them. Sometimes trans people ask questions. You just have to, in that group, you really have to pay attention to the group rules and the rules on each individual post, because they have a rule usually where when a question is posted, cis people usually have to wait at least 6 hours before they chime in with their opinion to give trans and non-binary people the space to give their answers first, because that's really what the group is all about. Yep. And just one more group. I don't know if there are any other La Leche League leaders in here, but La Leche League, this is specifically for La Leche League. La Leche League leaders supporting LGBTQIA plus parents and families. That's another really good Facebook group for anyone who's a La Leche League leader. So that is all I have. Thank you for letting me talk. I really appreciated it. It's something that I really like talking about. And I am more than happy to field any questions via email. I will put those resources in the chat so you all have them. So unless anyone had any really pressing questions, I have to head out. Set?
Thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. And if you ever want me back, just let me know.
Like you said, you have many more presentations to give, so we would be happy to hear more in the future, and we'll definitely be in touch. And thank you for adding those resources for us too.
You're welcome. All right.
Have a
Bye.
good day. All right. Awesome. That was really helpful. I know that the half an hour went by really fast for me anyway. There's a lot of great information, and I know Donna was taking lots of notes too. So she, I'm sure, captured a lot of that great information that we can have in our minutes, which we are posting on our website. So stay tuned for that. And also, I know Sarah said that they would send that information to me also by email, and we could include that in a email newsletter too.
Can I pop in for a moment,
yeah.
Kara? I see people with caller numbers here, and I'm not sure that they have entered their first and last name in the chat box. I know that Donna would appreciate that. And if you haven't entered your last name, then that would be great too.
Right. I know some of those callers might be associated with someone's name that's already up there. So that might be good to clarify. And for this next part of the meeting, I'll basically be going down through the list of people, this new knowledge worth having and connecting the dots part of the meeting. I'm going to put those questions into the chat box. So you can see what questions we tend to keep in mind when we're doing this part of the meeting. So since we have such a big group, I think what I'll do is what I've done before is just go down that list. And so throughout that process, when I get to caller 2, 3, and 4, it might be a little more clarified who is who and if you are part of someone else there. So thank you, Brooke, for sharing. You are caller 4. That is helpful to see. And yes, Amanda, did I just send that to you? Is that okay? Thank you. So Amanda just posted what the questions are that we'll be considering. So let me just moving some screens around here for myself. And if you haven't already introduced yourself, please do so in the chat box. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start at the top of the list here. And feel free at any time to take a stretch break or just stretch, move your body, do whatever you need to do while we are doing this part here. Cameras on or off, whatever you're comfortable with. When you're speaking, it'd be great to see your face. So Amanda, you are first on the list. Would you like to go first with sharing any knowledge you have? And so I'm going to pause you for a second. For those of you who can't see the chat box, the questions that we tend to go over are, do you have any information to share about what's happening legislatively that could impact our work? What else is going on in Maine that you'd like to share? 1 or 2 updates that we can help you all with. And we can maybe help you solve or think about any challenges you might be having, and what new research ideas are emerging. Is there anything in your workplace, any challenges you're having that we could all help you with? Thank you, Sarah, for adding all of those resources. And Donna can copy and paste those more easily. All right, sorry. Thanks. Go ahead, Amanda.
So I am working with an organization to gather information on donor milk banks. So if anybody, and specifically, how insurance relates to that in different states, she wants like a whole US picture, but I was going to start with Northeast because obviously that's what I'm more familiar with. I do have a connection with Mother's Milk Bank, so I'll be talking to them, but if anybody has any, you just have some information lying around about insurance coverage in milk banks, let me know. Or we're also going to do a study on, or like a survey on exclusive pumping. So if you have any, if you're interested in that, let me know. Yeah, those are the main things I got going on.
Awesome, thanks. Does anyone have anything they want to add or share with Amanda based on those things?
So Amanda, are those through your role? That survey would be coming. Can you just explain what the survey would be for, how it would be used, and that kind of thing? What questions, kind of questions?
Yeah, so we haven't created all the questions yet, but she's just interested in exclusive pumping. That kind of, I don't know what you would call it, just like group of people that do that, like why they choose to do it or why they have to do it, and emotionally how that impacts them. Yeah, we're just in the beginning stages of it, but I'm interested if anybody has connections to, like Facebook groups that are exclusive pumping, or if you've had experiences, I could send you the survey. Yeah, that's the main thing, just to get some more information around it.
And what organization is it? Do you work for? for other people?
I'm just not sure if I should share because it's a consulting thing I'm doing. So I think I can, but I just want to talk to her before maybe. But I will, if it's okay with the board, we'll talk about that, but I can share it through our platform also if that ends up being okay. That survey. So yeah, but any things about donor milk or exclusive pumping, let me know.
Awesome. I know there is a popular Facebook group, an exclusive pumping Facebook group. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, and I'm not a member of it, so I'm not sure if it is open or not, or if it's closed and you have to be invited.
Okay.
Does anyone else know about that? Okay. And Nina just posted saying Pump Spotting just did a podcast about exclusive pumping with a link there, episode 19. Awesome.
Great. Yeah, Amy
probably is
Karen of Pump Spotting is on our board, so thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Next on our list here is Brittany Reynolds. Brittany, would you like to unmute yourself and share any updates or questions you have?
So I just got done the CLC breastfeeding conference, and it was very similar to what we just heard on one of the trainings, but one of the trainings that I found really interested, sorry, I can't turn my video on, I have a 6-year-old running around, but was about depression and breastfeeding. So if anybody ever gets the chance to sign up for that, I know everything right now is on Zoom. That was really interesting, and it had a lot of good information surrounding like different like PTSD and the effects on breastfeeding.
Great. So that was the CLC conference, not the 40-hour training?
Nope, that was this past conference, the BEST conference, that they just had. So it's a really good, they had a lot of good information, a lot of different trainings, but there was a lot of good information this year.
Okay, great. So that's the bestconnect.net, right? I think that's the website.
Yes.
And right, it was a virtual conference, but done in a way, I believe, where they recorded all of the webinars ahead of time.
Yeah, and you have 30 days to get all of the trainings and everything. So
excellent. Thank you, Brittany. All right, Brooke, you are next on the list.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Let me take this off. I
Can't hear you now if you're talking. And this also might be a good time to reintroduce ourselves too. I know we introduced ourselves in the chat box, but when you are speaking to share an update or questions, if you could introduce yourself again, that'd be great. So Brooke might have to call back. Brooke, we'll come back to you. Is someone here connected to caller 2? Anyone? Caller 2. You might not know if you're caller 2. And I think Brooke said she was caller 4, but we're not hearing you now. So we'll keep moving on down to Donna DeMarsh.
So first of all, I want to say I miss seeing all of you guys in the same room. It's definitely a different kind of energy when we all get together, and miss eating my lunch with everybody. But hopefully soon we can get back to that. I don't know when or how, but we'll figure it out. WIC is transferred over to eWIC now, so we've got Ebt Cards instead of paper checks. I know, exciting. We've been long time coming. Some people that have been here for 20 years, they've been talking about it the whole time they've been here. So it's definitely a great, we're excited about that. Some new goodies that we've purchased at the state agency. We got some nursing bras. So we've distributed nursing bras to all the local agencies in the state. And that way we can, hopefully that'll be another tool. We're always trying to find new tools for our moms to encourage them to keep going. So that's our newest tool. That's all I can think of for WIC today. We have more WIC people on though, so maybe somebody else will have something to say.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear about how the rollout for the EWIC has gone. I know there's been a lot of excitement for it. Has it been smooth? Have there been a lot of bumps, or is it all going well?
Definitely the anxiety of it was worse than the actual rollout. It went so smooth. I can't even think of anything major that happens that we couldn't remedy. So yeah, it's great. Participants are using their cards at the stores and loving it. The stores it's a lot quicker of a transaction. So that's great. And we're making sure everybody pins their cards before they leave the office so that they don't have any trouble using it at the store. So definitely a good thing. So tell all your friends to join WIC because we're not doing paper checks anymore.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna.
You're welcome.
All right, and Donna Ellis.
Hi, guys. I actually have quite a bit to share today, and I hope that I can connect with someone and make this happen. So in May of 2019, I helped to open a milk depot in southern Maine. It was in a Biddeford yoga studio, and then came COVID. And there's been lots of transition and things that have happened. So presently, there is no Southern Maine milk depot because the freezer is in my garage with all of the accoutrements, and I'm looking for a new home for this freezer. This is a chest freezer. It's an upright. It's 35 inches wide, 21 inches deep, 31 inches tall, if anyone wants to know where it will fit. I'm hoping that there is a pediatric practice, another yoga studio, a WIC office, someone who would like to be a depot, but also a resource as a dispensary to provide milk to moms in the future. I am willing to help in any way. I am willing to be involved. I'm willing to step away. Whatever will work. I will put my phone number in the chat box, and if anyone wants to contact me to gain this freezer, it does have a temperature monitoring device that goes with it, and the folks from the Mother's Milk Bank Northeast are a very strong connection and provide lots of resources and guidance. So that's my spiel.
Donna, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you sorry, my phone's answering machine was going off. Can you tell me more about the geographic area you're most interested in? Is that not, that I'm assuming doesn't include the Portland area? You thinking
It could include, you know, within reasonable distance of my home, so we can put it on the truck and take it, because I'll deliver it. And this was donated by a local Sanford company. So, you know, I feel very obligated for it to be functional as a milk depot tool. So yeah, I would go as far as Portland. That would be reasonable. I'm in Alfred. I'm in very southern Maine, and so the county would not be reasonable, but you know, I don't mind traveling an hour or so.
but like the Biddeford area would be ideal or something?
The Biddeford area was where I originally, but I wanted it to be accessible. I wanted people to be able to come and drop off their milk, and it to be reasonable with parking and those sorts of things. And so that was my plan, but it doesn't have to stay here. Sanford would work. But I would go as far as South Portland. I was talking with someone who was affiliated with Mercy Hospital. She worked labor and delivery, and she was thinking that there might be a pediatric group that might be interested. So, you know, again, I just want it to be, one, out of my garage, two, for it to be functional, and to be used as it was intended as part of a milk depot.
I really wish that Planned Parenthood could do that. But I know from working there that, you know, everything has to get approved by 90 people above you. But has that something you've looked into at all?
No, I haven't looked into that specifically. The other group I thought would be wonderful, with a food bank would be a great place. You know, it just makes so much sense. But you know that I don't have a lot of connections. So that's the other. If you know of anybody who might be interested, again, I'll put my phone number in. I would love for it to go to a place where it will serve folks.
So I just heard that Maine Health is going to be opening a food bank. I'm not sure the timeline on that. That's one idea. And then the other idea I have is I know that the nurse manager at Southern Maine Pediatrics, South Portland Pediatrics, right by the mall, is very interested, like dedicated to supporting breastfeeding and chest feeding. And also we have on our board one of their clinicians, right? She works there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and Donna, I've been in touch with Christine Hain at Southern Maine Pediatrics, and she's interested, and they're trying to do some things on their end with getting approval to get that all set up as well. And I've reached out to Southern Maine Healthcare too to see if they're interested, and haven't heard back. But yeah, keep looking at all these different options. I think they're great ideas.
Okay. Again, if folks can contact me, I had heard Christine's name, and that's whose name was put forth by the person. It was a phone call with Healthy Children. So it was, so hopefully that will eventually come to fruition if another is not interested. Thanks.
And Kelly, I saw you unmuted yourself and you look like you were going to say something too.
No, I was just going to suggest the hospital as well. But I don't know what their structure is and their ability to add a freezer and all of that. And with COVID, I think everybody's feeling pretty overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Donna, for starting that to begin with, and for continuing the work that goes along with it.
Thanks.
Okay, Jen, you are up next. Jen Viget.
Hello. I did go pick up 20 cases of nursing bras last Wednesday from Augusta. So we have them in our office here in Biddeford, and they were just delivered to our Sanford office. We're so excited. They look amazing and they look super comfy. So we're hoping that new parents really enjoy them. As far as EWIC goes, we've been for the last month doing EWIC, and it's interesting thing because we're kind of seeing clients doubly, where we call them on the phone and do a lot of the appointment over the phone, and then they come into the office and we do the card in office. So we're kind of double seeing them a little bit right now. So, but it's going really well. Clients really seem to enjoy it. I've talked to a few stores in our area as well, and they all seem to have really positive feedback from it as well. So it's going pretty well for us here in York County.
Awesome. And do you have space for a freezer to run a milk depot?
You know what's funny? I at this time don't. We have we have the nursing bras that we just got in, and then ID folders and everything else. And so I was thinking, I'm like, what do I have for space? And I don't have anything in my storage room area right now for it. But I'll reach out to our Sanford office as well. I'd have to like get it approved by everybody also.
Yeah, and Donna, you said you were going to put your phone number in the chat box, right? And the Mother's Milk Bank Northeast is really, really helpful with training whoever's going to be running a milk depot. They have really great guidelines, and it is pretty straightforward and simple once you've done your initial training with them and you just stay in contact with them. So there's not too much that coordinating that it takes. Okay, let's see. And I see a couple people have joined back again, but I'm going to keep going down the list here. And Kelly Bowden, you're up next.
Hey, thanks. What's going on? I'm still trying to process the Substance Exposed Infants Conference that we had the past 2 days. Probably a lot of you were on that. And that was a terrific nutrition presentation, and it's a good discussion about marijuana and pregnancy and breastfeeding yesterday morning. And then what else is happening? I don't have anything in particular, but if I think of something else, I will raise my hand.
Awesome, thanks. I know it's hard to think of things on the spot sometimes. Okay, Donna, thank you for adding your contact info to the chat box. Let's see, Allison Marco, you are next on the list.
I don't know how much I have to add either. Yes, we've been doing EWIC since July 20th, and I've waited a long time for this to come along, and it's like a dream, and it's as good as I expected it to be. Clients finally have discretion at the store, and so that's fantastic. We still don't see, we offer phone appointments and in-person appointments for some of our families, so we're still not seeing a lot of people in person, which I think is concerning for all of us because they're not going to well child checks and well baby checks that often either. So just that concern of us not being able to get those measurements, but parents are still very hesitant to bring out littles into offices and for appointments. So one thing that I ran into, and I think I've brought this up before, is that when moms have a baby in NICU and mom gets discharged, and of course I've never worked in a hospital setting, so but I just had this come up. Mom was set up with Symphony in the hospital for use and was taught how to start out using the Initiate program on her Symphony. And by the time I talked to her 2 weeks later, she was still using the Initiate program and should have switched over to Maintain. And we've seen that happen. And I don't know how to, I don't know if they're just missing information, or I don't want to say that follow-up isn't happening because I don't know how that goes in a hospital. But after mom gets discharged, this particular mom said that the follow-up that she had was with a social worker, so it wasn't necessarily that. And she didn't know that there were two separate programs, or at least missed that information with everything she had going on. So that's something that comes up every so often, and I don't know if there's anything that we can do to reach out to help support parents through that time, or if anybody has any suggestions. So, but that's pretty much it for me.
That's great feedback, Allison, for the hospital nurse managers, for whoever's overseeing the lactation programs, because sometimes that happens where that, what's the term, the proactive or anticipatory guidance sometimes gets missed in that discharge education. There's just so much discharge education that's given out. And sometimes little things like that get missed and the follow-up isn't always there if it's not necessary or if it's not a standard practice. So I think it never hurts to send, to check in with the nurse manager and just let them know that this is what you're seeing happening. I know that sometimes I hear about moms who are still waking their babies to feed them for like 4 weeks and probably don't need to be, and they never heard otherwise, that they had to, every 3, to not let their babies go more than 3 hours. And, sometimes that gets missed between discharge and, when they might not see their baby's doctor again. So I don't think it hurts to just give that feedback and encourage that education to be part of the standard education, the what to expect in a week, or things about how to use the different pumping systems. And if you're not sure how to connect with the nurse manager in the hospital that you're seeing the patients come out of, Kelly, I'm sure could help you with that. Or even I could include something in a breastfeeding newsletter that goes out to a lot of the perinatal leaders in the state, or Kelly could as well.
I think that's a great idea, Kara, is to do multiple ways of spreading the message. So if you can include in a newsletter, that I'd encourage that, and then the one-on-one follow-up too.
Great, thank you, Allison.
Did this happen specifically a few times since COVID started, or has this been something you've seen just kind of periodically?
So when Medela added the 2-program card in, when we were following up, and especially our breastfeeding peer counselor, because she's on top of things following up with moms. And so we were finding that by the time we were getting their information, and mom had been discharged from the hospital, but baby was still in NICU. But we've heard it a few times. Like if we had only heard it a couple of times, it wouldn't be as much of a concern, but it has come up often. And so we actually had the dual program in our pumps, but because we noticed moms were struggling so much, we put back in the standard card. And if we think that somebody would benefit from the Initiate program, we switch it out and then add that card. But we have found that there is a lot of confusion over that dual program for those pumps.
Interesting. And I wonder if that education can't be done in the NICUs, when maybe a little while after the mom herself has been discharged and is kind of settling in a little bit more to what it's like to be a parent of someone in the NICU. But,
well, I can only imagine. I mean, their stress level must be extremely high, and there's probably tons of information that goes their way. And I'm sure there's a breastfeeding support person along the way that says, look, you need to make sure you're switching over within this amount of time, or when this is happening. And I'm sure that just goes, it gets filed and lost with so much other information. And I don't know if there's some way to create some sort of alert, like at that 5-day mark, to say, hey, did you switch over? How are you doing? What's the amount of milk you're pumping at this point? Because really you should be in that maintain program at this point. So this mom, she was starting to she was concerned because she was noticing changes, and then for me, I was like, oh my gosh, what are you using for a program? And she's like, oh, that first program. And I'm like, is it called Initiate? And she's like, yes, that's it. And I was like, holy cannoli, we're 14 days into this. You gotta change over. And she was, well, I didn't know, and like I said, it may have been reviewed with her, but certainly she has so much going on that probably was something that came and went for information.
And that's fun. Handouts can be really helpful sometimes. Sometimes it just adds to, a giant stack of handouts that they've already gotten. But if it's something that they might come across and see, just an additional reinforcement to the verbal teaching, that can sometimes be helpful. And I believe, does Medela have a handout on how the dual systems work? Okay. Yeah, I can try to find that and include that information for people too. Sarah, were you going to add something?
No, I was just, nothing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Allison. That's really helpful to be aware of. Okay, Nina, Emlyn, you are up next.
Hi, everyone. My name's Nina. I'm sorry, but most of you are frozen, so I'm not seeing you move, which is kind of strange, but you know, it is what it is with these virtual meetings. So I am the community marketing manager at Pump Spotting, but I also have a background as a birth doula, and I'm a certified lactation counselor, and I also worked with Savannah at WIC for a year as a breastfeeding peer counselor. So the news of EWIC, right, is very exciting. I'm so happy for everyone who works at WIC and everyone who uses WIC. That's really great news. I am really happy to be here today representing Pump Spotting and just being part of this group because I have such a passion for supporting new parents. And I wanted to share a little bit about a new video that Pump Spotting has put together with the help of Kara and also Paige Beltraum, who is a social worker at the Motherhood Center in New York City. And the video is geared toward working parents who are also body feeding their children. And it's just completely full of amazing tips for moms and parents, and from the practical things like how to keep your milk safe and keep your pump clean to kind of the existential things we're all dealing with you know, keeping things in perspective and finding time to maybe take care of yourself a little bit every day. I'm sure we're all struggling with that too. And so that's something that is new at Pump Spotting and that Kara was a part of, and it's we're really excited about it, and it's totally free. So if anyone is interested in getting that sent to you, I'll put my email in the chat box, and I will send it over if you email me. And yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I hope I can come back. I really, really am enjoying this.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, Nina. Thank you. And thanks for putting that info in the chat box too. It was really fun to be a part of that. Many of you have heard me rave about Pump Spotting. I think it's just such a great resource. Awesome.
Is that video?
Thank you, Kara.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Is it possible to put the video on our website? Is it that kind of a public thing, or do we need to have an email?
I am not sure. That's a great question. I can talk to Amy about that and get back to you, get back to everybody about that, because that would be really cool to have it be more accessible. So let me look into it.
Awesome. Brianna Plord.
Hi, can you guys?
Yeah, hi, I can hear you.
I'm trying to put my video on. There we go. Hi. So I am Brianna. I'm the breastfeeding coordinator for WIC in Bangor. We cover Penobscot and Piscataquis counties. So I just have a few things. We also had launched out eWIC back in June, and it's been amazing. We were the pilot program for it, and it actually went very smooth for being the guinea pigs of the operation. But now we've seen, you know, people come back now and they already have the card. So we've actually been able to provide more like nutrition and breastfeeding education because they already have the card. It's so much faster. And so we're able to really just talk to mom and not have to, you know, bounce around in the file too much. So that's a very positive change within the WIC world. For our breastfeeding support, we are doing in-person appointments. We can offer phone too. We found that some of our moms really like to come in. You know, they've been quarantined for so long, and they do like to come in and do that face-to-face, which is really important for rapport as well. So our breastfeeding peer counselor's in the office now, so she's able to do one-on-ones in a safe way with if anybody needs like a latch appointment. We haven't really had any. She's just been, you know, supportive over the phone. She also has the ability to provide assistance over it's called Doxy. It's almost like Zoom, but we get it approved by our IT department that it's completely safe. So you can't track anything on it because it's very vulnerable for women to be, exposed on a webcam when you're not in the same room as them. So we do have that option for our participants as well. And then someone had mentioned from WIC that with the height and weights, we're still unable to do that here in the Bangor office, but we did just have a discussion on, people's comfort levels with starting that back up, with just maybe specific populations like, babies that are under 6 months old or pregnant women, just because we have found that some of our clients have not been to the doctors in for such a long time. I had one client the other day, the baby hadn't been to a well child check in 6 months. And it's just, that's what WIC's here for, is to provide that other layer. So we did have a discussion about that. We're unsure how we're moving forward right now with that. And then a couple other things for research. I've been kind of just keeping an eye on the COVID updates, and if anyone has any research regarding COVID and breastfeeding or pregnancy, definitely share them, because I'm very interested in that. And then one thing that since I'm new to this program, like I just started in January, I've been really trying to find ways. I've been working with our breastfeeding peer counselor quite a bit on ways to provide support to our participants. So one thing that she brought to my attention was called the Buddy Program. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. So the USDA, you can find it right on, if you type in USDA WIC Buddy Program. It's a program that they developed where you pair people up according to their due date or the age of the child. So then they kind of agree to do this on their terms, and then they can talk to, moms of the same gestation or with the same age of their baby, and kind of compare, how their pregnancies are going, or are you going through the same stage in breastfeeding, and or some things like that. So it just kind of expands their support system, especially if they don't have a good support system at home. So that is something that we are currently working on for our program here. But other than that, that's all I have.
Thanks, Brianna. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, that just reminded me of the evidence-based birth resource. They are, you guys still hear me? Can you hear me, Kara?
Yeah.
So I'm going to share in the chat, but they send weekly emails about COVID updates in reference to pregnancy and breastfeeding. And so I can send that, but they also just have a lot of good resources on their COVID page right now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
I was going to say the USBC, United States Breastfeeding Committee, has that weekly Wednesday email that they send out that has a ton of resources and information. There are a couple of things that I'll be sharing too, and I'll try to find the link to sign up for that to put in the chat box too. But they just had some updated research in there as well. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Rihanna, do you have information about the Buddy program in general that you could add to the chat box?
Yep, I can post the flyers of it. Basically just says what, who, kind of just gives the rundown of the program. So I will attach those in the chat box.
Cool. Thank you.
That concept reminds me a lot of the centering in pregnancy model, where people with similar due dates are connected for prenatal care. I don't know if there's anybody doing centering pregnancy in your area.
Okay. Sarah,
Can
go ahead, Donna. I see.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something real quick about the Bangor WIC office. They were awarded the Loving Support Award, which is a breastfeeding support award from NWA. So I just wanted to say that they were in Maine. That agency was recognized for that.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Donna, for reminding me. I totally spaced on that, but yeah, we're super excited. We were very happy and pleased to accept that. And yeah, we were very happy about that.
Congrats. Awesome. And
Can someone-
Sasha or Rihanna, whoever would like, if you'd like to type something up for us to share that out in the in a Maine State Breastfeeding Coalition email, we'd be happy to do that because that's definitely something worth celebrating. And for anyone else on the call too, if there's anything in particular that you think would be good for the rest of the state and beyond to hear about and to celebrate with you, please send those to us.
Could someone just repeat the award for me one more time?
I believe it, oh, whoops. I believe it's just the Loving Support Gold Award.
Thank
that's
you.
what the title was.
And is that a WIC specific from the WIC?
Donna, do you know if it's just WIC specific? I'm not completely sure.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time unmuting. It's a USDA award. But I'll be happy to send some information about it for the newsletter, for your newsletter.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, and I just want to take a moment to read, Sarah, before you go. Ruth Griffin would have been next, and she had to jump off at 2:30, and you may have all read this already, but I'm going to read it for her. She said she wanted to report that our staff also had an excellent experience with the online BEST conference this year, and also that we have 2 staff currently doing the online CLC certification training, and that is going well too. The transition to virtual everything is becoming more smooth. Maine Families visits continue to be virtual only, and our CLC breastfeeding support is continuing that way, and folks are finding new ways to continue to improve that kind of support, though we would appreciate any tips or resources anyone has learned through their experience with ongoing virtual breastfeeding/chest feeding support. Please share. And she has her email address and phone number. That's really helpful. I know I was just thinking, Maine Medical Center just said that our childbirth ed classes and groups will continue to be remote through April of 2021. And everything seems to be going okay, but I'm like, okay, how else could we improve our classes and our groups online? So if anyone has any tips, anything that has worked well for you, please do share. And in the meantime, Sarah, would you like to go next?
Sure. I don't have any specific updates, but I will reflect on the speaker, and maybe we're supposed to do that at the end. But I just think it's really like I found myself recognizing how important language is, and then at the end being like, so how should we like treat people who are non-cis chest feeding, human milk feeding humans, differently or more, be sensitive to other needs other than through our language. And then I realized, I think in other meetings we've talked about just like the kind of universal respect that we should all be giving people when we work with them, and asking permission, and touching and asking permission for that, and all the other just kind of generally respectful ways to be with people. So it just kind of like, as I was like muddling through, like, well, why isn't she talking about like things, or why aren't they talking about things that we shouldn't, other ways than language, to be more respectful or sensitive to people who aren't cisgendered. And then cisgender. See, I'm correcting myself multiple times, but it just, I think it just reminded me of that kind of universal respect. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any updates. That was it.
Thank you. Yeah, we didn't really have that chance right after to process all that we learned and took in. And she did toward the end start to say, like, just listen, just be a good listener and offer support and respect as you would anyone else, really. So that is helpful. And the language piece is tricky. And I think we won't be able to offer that kind of support to people without having a basic understanding of it and practice. And she said a few times, which was helpful. I know that as I've learned a lot too, same thing with race, right? And being anti-racist is we're going to make mistakes, and instead of not trying to do anything differently, being ready to apologize and fess up to what we realize we did or said wrong. So it's a lot to take into process. And this is where like our deeper dialogue discussions are really missed, because this is a great topic for a deeper dialogue discussion where we can just chat about this for an hour. It's a topic that isn't just one that will be done. It's not like we did that and now we're done with it. We're going to be coming back to that one frequently as well. Yeah. And Sarah, can I ask you, as a pediatric research navigator, right? Can you tell us, is there any research that you're working on that relates to infants?
Yes, things that Kelly is that relate to Kelly as well. Not specifically breastfeeding, but a lot having to do with simulation around neonatal resuscitation trainings for teams throughout Maine Health community hospitals. So that's been a big program that I'm helping with the research aspects of, and Kelly's helping with her expertise, offering that in community hospitals. I was thinking about what the chest feeding or breastfeeding related projects are, but honestly, the one that I've been helping with specifically is a bit stalled. It's a quality improvement project at Southern Maine, or South Portland Pediatrics. But they've been so busy with COVID, and then the Joint Commission came to do their work with all of Maine Health. So I think it's been a very busy time. So I don't have anything specific breastfeeding related, but many infant related projects. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have just about, 8 minutes.
Okay, great. And we'll be going to Savannah next, and then back to Brooke, and then Gina Davis, I think, is who we have left. And I have just a couple of things to share as well. So Savannah, go for it.
Great. So the first thing I wanted to share is in regards to the LGBTQIA plus community and Maine Family Planning. So that's kind of one of Maine Family Planning, our niches, I guess, and Maine Family Planning is very proud to support that community. So if you do know someone who is looking for a healthcare provider who is an ally, you can send them to Maine Family Planning. So there's that. But more related to breastfeeding, we have hired a second peer counselor for our agency. So we now have 2, which is big. We have one for Hancock County and one for Washington County. And both those folks are pretty much full-time employees. Our girl in Washington County is going to be counseling as well for WIC, and then in Hancock County, she's doing admin. So hopefully we will have them for the long term, and they're both great. We love them. So that's exciting. Our gal up in Washington County, she has started a Facebook page, and it is called Feed My Loves. And it is just about feeding your baby. So feel free to check it out. You can find it on Facebook, but she does go through and approve you. So there's that. And before COVID happened, we had started in partnership with Northern Light Maine Coast. We had started a support group for new parents. And we were just kind of gaining momentum with that and getting people to come, and then everything shut down. But I have been in touch with one of the nurses there, and we're starting to kind of think about ways to make that online, and if that's a possibility, and how we could, you know, share that with new parents. So yeah, EWIC is great. We're so excited. Moms are just loving it. It's really helping parents at the grocery store. I've heard over and over just how relieved they are to not have to, you know, whip out their check folder and like hold up the line. And so it's really, really going well. I'm really excited.
Savannah, can I just ask your last name? I know it's a little thing, but.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's Havey, Havey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Savannah, is that Facebook group, the Feed My Loves, is that intended to be local to like families and parents that are local to that area, or is she open to it being, you know, for other families throughout Maine or beyond?
Yeah, so right now, you know, it is mostly WIC families, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't be, you know, breastfeeding families in general. That's kind of, you know, the more the merrier, I guess, and the more families we can help continue, you know, feeding their babies how they want, the better. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great update. Very positive. A lot of good stuff. Okay. Brooke, would you like to go?
Yeah, let's see if my connection will keep working. So just to pick up where, I don't know where I cut off, but basically the Maine State Legislature will not be reconvening again before the election in November, which means that any bills that didn't make it across the finish line, unfortunately, are dead, for lack of a better word. So I know that includes a donor breast milk bill. I think there was another bill on substance exposed infant. So, you know, if there were efforts that you'd worked on, it is disappointing, but all of that advocacy will just build on what happens next session. So I think this would be a really good time to restart those conversations about reintroducing that bill for next year, or any other ideas that any of your organizations have. And this may also be a good time to start talking to legislators who will be the ones that actually introduce the bill on your organization's behalf. So generally, there is a deadline at some point in December. I don't know the date yet, for those original, like, initial concepts to be kind of like placeholders to be introduced. So it's going to come up really quickly. And then there'll be more time to flesh out the details of the bill, you know, in January, throughout the winter and spring. But I would definitely encourage folks to start talking to legislators and start talking to your own coalitions about what would be worthwhile pursuing in terms of legislation change.
Okay. Great update, Brooke. Thank you. I know that the donor milk one, we were not a part of starting that necessarily. We helped to encourage people make their voices heard, and we did some public testimony as well. I believe it was Representative Margaret Craven who was the sponsor for that. So would you recommend that we could reach out to her to see if she's willing, if she's planning on reintroducing it?
Yes. And I think that's a great idea. And she's up for re-election. I mean, all of the members, unless they're termed out, they're all up for re-election. So it may be something where she says, I'd love to, if I'm re-elected in November. You know, it's obviously a question mark for everybody, but you know, somebody like Margaret Craven, who's been serving the community for a long time, I think there's a very good chance that she'll be re-elected. And yeah, I think reaching out to her would be a great idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Brooke, our legislative expert? Okay.
You're so calm.
all I'm gonna say.
One other thing I would add, that for if you or your organization are brainstorming about efforts to that would require new legislation next year, I would really think hard about anything that has a price tag, because as we all know, there's going to be some pretty serious budget cuts next year, and I think any bill that's expensive is going to be really hard pill to swallow, even if we know it's a good investment for the future. So I think I would really think creatively about bills that might not actually cost anything, but would, might be a policy change or a prohibition or a requirement that don't necessarily have a price tag would have a much better chance at getting through, especially this year.
Okay. That's great to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gina, I think you are the only one left to go. Are you there?
Hi, I'm here. I am Gina. I'm from Maine General WIC. I was honestly actually probably caller number 2, but I was driving from Waterville to Augusta and I had like 2% left on my battery, so I was too afraid to unmute my phone. I can't really think of any updates or anything. Been seeing a lot more breastfeeding moms in the office lately. Yeah, I can't really think of anything. I had one recently that has a prolactinoma tumor on her pituitary gland. And it's really hard finding info on that and breastfeeding, and like how it relates to prolactin levels. So if anyone has any resources on that, I am all ears.
Great. So does she have a really high milk supply as a result of that, or?
No, she actually has a lower milk supply, and she's really frustrated and bummed out because she's just had her first baby, but she's been lactating for 5 years, and has had to wear breast pads for 5 years without having ever had a baby, and now she's given birth and has a lower milk supply.
Oh, wow. Can you type in what that's called in the chat box, and maybe we can do some, and your contact info?
I imagine the 5 years of some lactation was relating to the tumor, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a tumor. So from what I researched, and she said she's had it on her pituitary gland. She's been on medication for it, that helps reduce the prolactin level, because this tumor causes your body to secrete excess prolactin. So she was on medication to decrease prolactin, and then she got pregnant, so they stopped it. And she delivered, and she just assumed she would have like a big milk supply because that's fairly common. It seems, I guess it goes one of 2 ways. Your body continues either making a large amount of prolactin, or when you deliver, your body like tries to protect your brain because it's a tumor in your brain, and so decreases your prolactin. So I had her go get her prolactin levels checked because she hadn't, and baby was just 2 months and her prolactin level is 84, so a little bit lower than it should be. From what I've read, it should be around 100 at 3 months. So she's going to talk to her doctor about something to increase her prolactin level, but she's not sure how that will go, because if she does that, then there's a chance that the tumor could grow more, and yeah.
It's hard.
Sounds like she worked closely with her doctor.
Yeah.
And that you've been a big support for her too. That's huge.
Yeah, we got her set up with a pump, a Symphony she was using, and not a wonderful pump, so it's probably not being very helpful. And she's gonna start trying to pump every 2 hours during the day to see if she can naturally increase her prolactin level through increased output. But we're just not sure. She's not too far off. She's getting, I think she's usually like 5 to 10 ounces of donor milk most days, but usually on the lower end of the 5 ounces if needed.
All right, thanks for sharing that. That's an interesting kind of a case, pretty rare.
Yes, very weird and interesting.
Great. Thanks for joining and from your car when your battery's so low and sticking with us and coming back. Thank you.
I know. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make it. My phone died as I pulled into my driveway, so I just hopped on my laptop.
All right. I just wanted to add a couple of things. There's an organization called Maternal Health Alliance of Maine, and they are starting up their weekly online support groups again for women experiencing symptoms of perinatal mood disorders. And the information I have says all new mothers are welcome to come share, listen, and receive support. They do not need a diagnosis or to be in treatment to join. And these groups were usually held in Southern Maine, but because they're all virtual now, anyone throughout the state of Maine can join. So I just entered their website in the chat box. They already have 8 moms registered for the group right now, which is great. Sometimes these groups are really small, and that can be hard when you want to find other people to be connecting with. So this is a good sign and definitely worth checking out. And I also, even though their language hasn't been super gender friendly, I guess, or non-binary friendly, and in the information that I was just reading from, I'm sure that they are a very welcoming group of facilitators. There's also Postpartum Support International. I just want to remind people that there is a Maine chapter. I'm putting that in the links in the chat box as well. And that chapter has other resources throughout the state too for postpartum support. And I also heard the Maine chapter lead had shared that Intermed recently hired a team of people to connect Intermed patients with behavioral health professionals when they're referred by their primary care or family medicine or women's health provider. And she said, in essence, they're paying these employees to call around and figure out which therapists are accepting new patients and for that specific patient's insurance plan, which is really huge and really helpful to have that kind of, it sounds like a patient advocate to me in a way. So know if that is open to Intermed patients. And otherwise, when I was looking through the USBC weekly Wednesday email, they had just reminded us, I had forgotten as well, that this is SIDS and Safe Sleep Awareness Month. And so I'm putting in some resources from the USBC and also the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. They have, I'm sorry if these links are not going through for you to click on them easily, but hopefully you can copy and paste. They have SIDS awareness toolkits that maybe you could use in some of your communication as well. And Kelly, thank you for sharing that link about the marijuana and breastfeeding statement from the National Association of Neonatal Nurses. So I'm anxious to look at that. That's one thing that my work with Kelly will involve a lot more patient education materials and resources for folks. And marijuana and breastfeeding is a topic that a lot of people are wanting more information on. So I'm hoping to put something together to share. I know that the state does have some resources, but I think we can be doing a little bit more there. All right, any last thoughts or updates to share with everyone before we move into the wrapping it up portion of the meeting?
We just have 6 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So in these last 6 minutes, we are just taking the opportunity to share what we're taking away from today's meeting and a little bit about upcoming meetings and events. And like I said, our 2021 meetings are still to be determined. We plan, as far as I know, on sticking with the same schedule of meetings, first Thursday of the month, virtual for now. And in terms of topics, please share any ideas or preferences that you have. Our December meeting will be virtual, and the plan was to have the topic emergency management related, feeding infants in emergencies. And we have some resources we can share. The person who is going to speak is no longer working. We had already planned for that person to speak back in March, and he's no longer working. So I'm trying to find a backup speaker for that. I am optimistic we'll find someone that will work out. So that is it for meeting updates. So in these last 6 minutes here, if we can just go through and share what our takeaways are from the meeting. And I can go first and just share that I'm always pleased to see so many people. I think we had maybe 18 or 20 or more than that at one point in the meeting. That may have included some matched up callers with faces, but really great to see everyone taking the time out of their days to join us, and virtually, when I know there's a lot of virtual fatigue happening still. So thanks for being here, and that presentation from Sarah was fabulous as well. Look forward to hearing more from her. So I'm going to go down the list alphabetical. Amanda, you're up next.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Kara, for always being such a good leader. I really enjoyed the presentation. There's, I feel like, always so much to learn on that topic. And I also, liked hearing that I don't think our website is very gender neutral, and we need to look at that. And I'm the one that does that. So I felt a little bit better knowing that we can do small things instead of, even though we want to be as most inclusive as we can, it's nice to know that you can do small things or do, breastfeeding one place, chest feeding one place. That just feels like something that we can manage and start to be more inclusive on our Facebook page and on our website in general. So, yeah, excited to just look the website over and see what we can change in that way.
Awesome, thank you. And Brittany, you're up next.
It was just really nice to hear all of the updates around WIC. Maine Families works really closely with WIC, so hearing that things have gone to the card and that everything seems to be going smoothly, it's just good information to bring back to the families that I'm working with.
Great, thank you for being here, Brittany. Brooke?
I also really enjoyed Sarah's presentation, and Amanda, I agree. It's a relief that we don't need to rebrand our coalition or start from scratch, but there are ways to incorporate gender inclusive language into what we do. And I also really enjoyed learning about different ways that both trans men and trans women are able to just feed, breastfeed, body feed through hormonal support and through technology. And it's just like really incredible what the human body can do. So that was very encouraging.
Thanks, Brooke. Donna DeMarche? Oh, we can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but there's no... Can't hear you. You can type it in, or we can just try to come back to you. But I know we only have a couple minutes before we have to run. Donna Ellis?
So just great to hear what's going on in the various parts of Maine with the various organizations. I am always impressed with the individuals that we have within our coalition meetings to present on topics that are cutting edge. We really need this information, and the folks who present are actually very, very, they're top notch. That's the best I could say, but I'm just so grateful. Thanks.
Thanks, Donna. Gina?
I thought the presentation was amazing, and while I was driving and listening, I was thinking we have a Facebook page for our WIC program, and I think that we are not using any inclusive language. I think for the most part we're saying are posting directly geared towards mothers, so something I'll probably bring back to our team. And the girl that runs our Facebook page, and just something that we get on our level can be much more mindful of.
Okay. Thank you. Donna, I see you're saying I appreciated Sarah's presentation and the clarification of terms. Yes, thank you. Jen?
Always eye-opening to see how much I don't know about that topic. So it's always a good idea to have some things that I can work on outside of the group.
Great, thanks. Nina?
Yeah, I too really enjoyed Sarah's presentation. It addressed a lot of questions that we've been kind of grappling with at Pump Spotting about the way that we talk with people that use our app. And so I thought that their approach of kind of taking it step by step, and it just seemed very doable instead of this big problem to solve in one, effort. So I really appreciated that a lot. And also just getting to see you all. I don't know a lot of you, but it's just so nice to remember that there are so many people out there in Maine working so hard for the families of Maine. So thanks for having me today, and I hope I see you guys again soon.
Awesome, thank you. So great to have you. Rihanna?
Hi, yeah, I really enjoyed the speaker today. We had one speak to our public health and community services building that we are located in. We had someone from the University of Maine that came and talked about the same, a very similar topic. And it's always good to, hear different presentations, and I definitely learn something new every time. So I'm really appreciative of that. And I'm also appreciative of being able to network with a bunch of people in Maine. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Sarah?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of already talked about my thought process and takeaways from the presentation, but yeah, I just really, really appreciate the opportunity to learn more. So thank you.
Thank you. And Savannah?
Yeah, it's just really, it's so nice to be reminded of the language that we use and just, how it tends to kind of shape our culture. And it's been on our minds, I think, a lot, like racially. But it's nice to remember that there's other people who need allies, and just kind of keeping our language. It's simple, it's easy. Well, you're kind of, but it's something that you can do that you don't have to put a ton of effort into, that, really makes a big difference to other people. So yeah, and it was really great to see everyone, but it was really great to see Nina as well. It was such a pleasant surprise to see you.
Awesome. I know it's not quite the same to not be in the actual room with everyone, but seeing faces is so important and so lovely. Thank you everyone for joining us and for participating, and Donna for taking minutes. Thank you so much. This recording will be available at some point here soon. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Kara,